Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the SOM TV podcast. My name is Jason Wise. I am honored to have you. I want to tell you I am very fortunate today. Actually, you're very fortunate that I am being joined by one of the, I'm gonna blow you up here, Elaine. One of the, I think, greatest wine writers that is living today. Maybe later on, probably one of the greatest wine writers that has existed. Elaine Chukan Brown, who is on the pod right now, you have seen in a number of things. You have seen in A Drink a Bottle with Kelly White on SOM TV. You have seen in our verticals on Tara Gomez, Communes of Dreams, and Kitá Winery, which is what we're going to talk about a bit today. I have her on the pod, and you don't want to miss that. But first, I just want to say there is, after the new episode of Sparklers that dropped Tuesday, we have one left. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart how much we all appreciate the incredible outpouring of support for this show. It was a hell of a show to make, and it was so fun, and we have friends for life doing it. And the calls for a second season already before it's even ended really mean a lot to us. Don't forget to tune in next Tuesday, because I'm sure spoilers are going to bound all over the place on who wins. And go to somtv.com. An entire year is $49.99, and we are working hard on everything. New stuff coming all the time. One last thing, our feature film, Saving the Restaurant, following Bobby Stuckey for the entire period of the pandemic, all the restaurant shutdowns, and the incredible battle that the IRC, Independent Restaurant Coalition, and him had with Congress and internally amongst themselves, and everything this poor industry went through his eyes, is coming on February 15th on somtv.com. It is not to be missed. It is a hell of a ride. Elaine, welcome to the pod.
So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
I am honored. First, I should just get the elephant out of the room. Congratulations on your incredible new position at JancesRobinson.com.
Thank you.
You are, it's a very illustrious position.
Executive Editor U.S.
Executive Editor U.S.
Yeah.
You seem like somebody to not make mad now with that title. I should be very careful.
I try to be pretty even-handed in things. Just a couple of friends understand that I can rant in private, but only to let off steam. So I don't know that people have to be fearful of my anger. I make a point of not writing when I'm mad.
Well, I've never really seen you angry. I just mean, man, that pen has power. Jancis is one of the people that really not just inspired me to continue making stuff, but when I get into a rut with wine content and things, and God knows we make a lot of it, I return to kind of what Jancis has done, and I read her work, and it perks me right back up, and it sort of puts me back to where I want. I'm not alone. Jancis Robinson has inspired quite a few people.
No, I'm so lucky to be able to work with her. And the truth is, I left my academic position, my previous career 10 years ago now, just 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that entire time I have not had an outside job. I've been kind of cutting my own way through the wine world, doing the work that I believed in. And I didn't need to take a job. But when this opportunity came up, Jancis and I spent a lot of time talking about what our goals would be, what the future of her work is and the site is, and what we think is needed in the wine world today. And the two of us realized that our kind of ideals, goals, and values really strongly overlapped. And that's what made it worth it to me to go ahead and take a job.
That's all. I mean, it's really great stuff. So that stuff, I just want to congratulate you. And,
thank you.
You can read her work on JancesRobinson.com, and a lot of great stuff is outside the paywall there that you can check out that Elaine you've written there for quite a while. But speaking of writing, you are in a Verticals episode that I was lucky to direct, you produced, and it was about Tara Gomez, a winemaker in the San Ynez Valley, who happens to be a Native woman, part of the, maybe am I saying this right, the Chumash band? I can't remember.
San Ynez band of the Chumash tribe, yeah.
San Ynez band of the Chumash tribe. And that particular episode from season 2 it taught me quite a bit about so many different topics. I mean, it was not just about wine. And I think the best wine stories are never really only about wine. But we got news, and you've written about on JancesRobinson.com that Kitá, the winery, is closing. And I wanted to have you on to kind of have a conversation about couple things. Why the hell are more people not talking about this? And 2, what does this mean? I mean, I think that, Tara's going to be fine. They make incredible wines for Communes of Dreams. But where do we start on this topic?
Well, I mean,
do you want to set up where Kitá, for anyone that's maybe not familiar?
Let's give some backstory. So Kitá, for 10 years, has been a fully tribally owned, run, and made winery here in the United States. Tara Gomez, the winemaker for Kitá, she founded Kitá through the San Ynez band of Chumash, which she's a member of the tribe. And so it was a fully tribally led winery. This is unique in the world. There are a good number of tribally owned wineries in New Zealand. Kono, for example, is one example that comes into the United States. It's fully Maori owned, not just by an individual person, but actually by the tribe there in New Zealand. But the people that make the wine are from outside the tribe. Then up in British Columbia, Incomeep is really one of the first wineries to lead the way on this. It's tribally owned in collaboration with a wine company. And now Justin Smith, a tribal member, is winemaker, but it was founded with people outside the tribe. Kitá was really unique in that it was founded by the tribe with a vineyard they owned themselves, made by a tribal member. So as far as I understand, the only fully tribal winery in the world. And Tara has been recognized by the California state legislature as the first Native American winemaker as well. So it's really quite significant. And in my mind, it's, in a way, it's a classic American story. It's, going back to the founding people now with a new initiative, a new way of doing things, like with their own historic land. It's really quite significant. But the tribe decided that it was time to move out of the wine business. And so they're retaining the vineyard, and they will continue to sell fruit to other wineries, but they're closing down Kitá.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a multitude of reasons they're doing that, so I'm not here to criticize that. But I will say, from I couldn't be more of an outsider outside of making the wine stuff, and I think the wines from Kitá were stupendous.
That's the thing about it.
I know.
The thing about it. The wines stood on their own. It's an amazing story, but the wines totally stood up.
The Grenache in particular was one of the wines that I loved. And also the pricing was incredible. I mean, I'm sure, starting a winery, doesn't matter who you are, it's incredibly hard. But starting a winery for Tara, who had to battle, you can watch this story on the Verticals episode, Elaine. You and Tara and Maria, her wife, talk extensively about what it took. I mean, Tara is somebody that complete positivity. She never looks at you and says, this was so hard, woe is me. She just goes, yeah, we had challenges and here's how I overcame them. And it's kind of incredible to hear her speak, and her father and you and everything, but it wasn't easy. And wineries are hard enough in their own right. So, I mean, I kind of wanted to ask you, what have we lost besides a freaking delicious wine?
So, the truth is, and this is the hard point, but the truth is that the United States, culturally, we are in denial of our own history and the fact that we've, as a nation, actively decimated our First Peoples. And part of what comes with that kind of denial is a lot of stereotypes around what Native people are and what it means to be Native. And, we see this finally, after literal decades of activism trying to get the names of football teams changed, finally, actually, for the first time about 2 years ago, they started to consider that maybe, yes, we should change the name. So that's just an example of anti-Native racism is utterly prevalent in the United States. It's just commonplace. If you walk by the front window of a bookstore, featured in the front window will casually be some murder mystery called Indian Killer. It doesn't even occur to anybody that this might be upsetting to someone who happens to be Native, right? So anyway, the reason I bring this up is that one of these stereotypes is the assumption that Natives are drunks. It is not scientifically proven. It is not socially proven that, that alcoholism rates are higher in Native communities, but it is believed nevertheless that that's true. And so having a tribally made winery, even if it's not explicitly talked about, is this subtle way of undermining those stereotypes. Mm-hmm. Natives can have a healthy relationship with alcohol. And in fact, Native peoples are capable of a whole myriad of careers and business ownership. And here we go. Here's an example, a winery,
Yeah. This is something that is addressed in the Verticals episode with, I think, a lot of grace. This is something you explain. And it's such a tough conversation. And I think it's very important for me as, look, I'm about as white male as you can get. And for me to have a conversation and ask questions and be given honest answers about this topic from you, from Tara, I think is incredibly important. What I have realized too in making that film is that it is not, I hate to say you guys, but natives want to talk. I mean, it's not like, this is not like they're not hidden. They are right there and they want to talk about these issues and they want to be a part of things. Honestly, it was an interesting thing. Tara's story when we did it, you hear that there is this native woman, she started a winery, and it is an incredible thing, but I can't overemphasize how good the wine actually is. That is so important for me because it is not just, here is this, now that stuff is incredibly important, but it's not just that. This is a very, very, very talented winemaker who now makes, I have no problem saying this, I think one of the best Syrahs by far down there, anywhere near the area where she makes it. Her Communes the Dream Syrah, I'm always afraid, I was afraid when the episode came out because our podcast producer Nadine, myself, my wife, we love the wine. So we're always afraid that it'll go up in price. It's always one of these things where like, uh-oh. But in this case, it's like, it's very much deserved because the Communes the Dream Syrah is it's just fantastic. I just adore it. So like I said, it's not like Tara's not making wine anymore, and it's not like that representation is gone. I mean, that's still happening. But
it's happening in a different way, though. Because let me fine tune the details even a little more. Mm-hmm. The vineyard Camp 4 that the San Ynez Band owns is planted in historical Chumash land. They were able to reclaim their own historical land, mm-hmm. and that's where the vines are growing. So Kitá being made by a tribal member from vines grown in historically tribal land means the wines were expressing their history in a symbolic way, at least, right?
Is that not terroir? When you talk about the definition of what that is, it's incredible. Then you can't separate that story from the actual taste. Yeah. It's the same thing.
And so Communes, oh my gosh, I totally agree with you. I love the wines. They're also, they make Gruner, which is totally unique. It's not Austrian Gruner. It is Santa Rita Hills Gruner. And then they have a sparkling Gruner. How fun is that? Oh my gosh, yay. And I absolutely am with you on that. And it's a different kind of representation because it's an individual member who happens to be indigenous and has her own winery with Maria. And that's a fantastic thing, but it's different. It's different than a tribally owned winery,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I wonder, do you think they'll ever try to go back to making wine? Do you think these are total speculative questions you have no way of answering?
There's no way to answer that. But the thing we have to remember is, like you were saying, it's really hard to get a winery going. And from what I've seen, just traveling around the world, observing wineries, it takes about 10 years to prove yourself and to feel like you've got your feet under you and can keep it going. And
a bit longer. Honestly.
But I mean, it's like the 10-year mark is like that first measure. So like if you're having a hard time in the first 3 years, that's appropriate, right? Yeah. That shows you're working on a dream and you have to keep building from there. And the thing was, in the last several years, Tara had successfully built Kitá to a place where she demonstrated a native winery can be successful in that level. She hit the 10-year mark. And in the last year alone, she was featured in 2 of the highest distribution food magazines in the country, Food and Wine, Bon Appetit. Mm-hmm, right. She was named Winemaker of the Year by Vine Pair. Both Communes and Kitá were in their top 50 wines of the year. She had the Verticals episode featured on Som TV as like the finale episode of its season.
That's right.
And then in January this year, Kitá was named a winery to watch for 2022. And then about 2.5 weeks later, it was announced they were shutting down. And that is heartbreaking.
It is truly heartbreaking. I think, too, though, I want to ask you something that it's a bit of a tangent, but it's not. And I don't know if you feel comfortable answering, but what are the politics on a reservation? And I ask this because it's not like this was Tara's choice.
No, it's the tribe's choice.
Is it something you can talk about? I mean, I truly don't know the answer, so I'm not going for anything. But I mean, I would imagine it was very political. A lot of voices. That there was a lot of people probably going both directions on whether to do this or not. So
So I won't speak for the San Ynez band, but what I can say is that, so the group that I'm a member of from Alaska, so I'm indigenous, but from Alaska, and the group I'm a member of also has effectively tribally owned businesses as well. So often what happens is you'll have your tribal members. So they're part of the tribe. They're recognized as members of the tribe. Different tribes, some are federally recognized, some are just locally through the tribe recognized because of history. They got kind of kicked out of federal recognition or something. So you'll have the broad base of tribal memberships, tribal members who are enrolled in the tribe. And then within that, you'll have some degree of a voting body, so to speak, who guides the decision making for the tribe. Different tribes handle the voting body differently. Sometimes it's only a small part of a tribe that has voting rights, and maybe those voting rights change over time, like through some kind of election system or nomination system or something like that.
Right, okay.
A lot of it depends on the size of the tribe. Again, this is very generally speaking. I'm not speaking to the exact details for the San Ynez tribe, but generally speaking, it would probably be a situation where a portion of the tribe has voting rights on the businesses owned by the tribe because they're in the leadership position. And those people would be the decision makers in something like this.
I guess so. Tara had to sort of probably sit and watch this happen. Probably. I mean, it wasn't, I'm sure she had input, but I mean, it was not her decision, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Right?
And I can't speak to that, but mean, it certainly wouldn't only be her decision. And it would be, because again, it was tribally owned. So it would be the tribe's decision. Yeah.
Right. Well, the vines, I mean, another thing we should mention too is when it comes to grapes and where they're planted, obviously, some places are incredibly sought after. Where these grapes are is very good land. It is incredibly good land. And the grapes that grow there are worth a lot of money.
Thankfully, Camp 4 is going to continue. And so that's one of the benefits, at least, is other wineries will continue to make wines from Camp 4, which is recognized in the region as one of the preeminent sites. And so, we can still keep an eye out for Camp 4 designated wines too.
Sure. And several people make, Stoltmans make wine out of there, and many
Coonan
names,
is another one that has tended to,
Tyler, and there are many of these wineries that if you know wine from that area, and you probably do if you're listening to this podcast, they source grapes from here for a reason. It's very good. I do remember though, when we were shooting, there was a fire up in Napa and Sonoma.
Yeah.
I think it drove prices up like crazy because a lot of Napa wineries were trying to get grapes from wherever they could. And so I know that Camp 4 was put under a lot of pressure to sell grapes for quite a bit of money up to Napa. So, I mean, there's always that ebb and flow of nature and all that stuff that really...
Well, and historically, Santa Barbara County, actually, that's part of how the vineyards got established was, producers in Napa and Sonoma needed more fruit. And so people started planting, not till the end of the 60s, but then into the 70s as well. People started planting vineyards in Santa Barbara County going into the 80s as well. And most of that fruit was going north. And it wasn't until the 80s. And then it didn't really take off until the 90s. People started establishing wineries in Santa Barbara County itself, So there's always been that movement around the state with grape sourcing too,
Yeah, it's wild how new, you just sort of take it for granted, then you learn how new, I guess, these regions are. It's kind of an incredible thing.
Long ago, before California was part of the United States, there were historic mission vineyards in the broad region as well. So it had proven it could grow vines previously, but the modern era didn't start till the end of the 60s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the good news is that the tribe has that land. It is theirs now, and that is a miraculous, incredible story, one that is generational to pull off. There are a lot of positives to this, but why aren't more people talking about this? Because as you said, it's like a great American story. And I like how you said our history, when you were talking about, the inequities that have, really terrible things that have happened, but it is our history. It's my history too, for better or worse. It is my history too. And
I think with what we're seeing, more broadly, there's such an increase in attention going to conversations around diversity and people trying to figure out how do we create greater equity around diversity. And I think one of the things we have to remember, like right now it's Black History Month. Black history is our history. It is U.S. history. It is literally the formation of the United States that Native history is American history. Like, these are not things that we can pot off and pretend we can fully separate. Like, the history of the United States is a braiding together of many, many cultures. And it's part of what I was saying earlier. There's a kind of denial. Like, we like keeping things comfortable and convenient and pleasant in the United States. And my God, I want to be comfortable with some convenience and have a pleasant day. But we also need to be real, right? Like, let's be real. Yeah. We can be more productive, more creative, and ultimately more successful when we face the history that we've lived and we learn from that and then collaborate to find ways to move forward, And so that's the thing. This is our history. Kitá was a great American story. It was an American business that happened to be tribally owned because that's part of the history of the United States.
And it is exactly the answer to the question. That is why this is a great American story. And also, you have somebody who came from a dream, did not have the means to pull off what their dream was. They pulled it off. I mean, it is an incredible thing of what Tara did. And it's in this, I keep referring to the Verticals episode, but it really, that story is in it. You can hear her father, this incredibly proud father, tell the story of his daughter going to school to become a winemaker, dealing with, politics, internal, external, all of the, flat out racism she dealt with when she was young and handling it like a pro and never wavering on her dream. That is what people, I think, until unfortunately, probably pretty recently, thought of America. You have this idea of something you want to become and want to do, and you can do it here. So that is another reason this is a truly American story.
Right.
That it's like she pulled off the impossible nearly for, as we said, making a winery is nearly. It's one of the hardest things.
There's also nothing obvious about a young Chumash girl going on to become a winemaker, and so that's that American dream sense, like that she could choose to realize from a very young age that's her dream, and she got to go do it. It's cool.
How much of your life do you spend having to talk about these types of subjects? Representation, and I say this because I also know you as one of the funniest people to have a glass of wine with. I mean, you laugh more than most people, and I feel like every time we talk, it's always, when we talk publicly at least, it's always some heavy stuff, and I almost like, it's not that I feel bad you have to do this, but I also I want to talk to you about more so people can on the Slam TV podcast know, I started you off, it sounds like hyperbole for me to say that you are one of the best wine writers, but you are one of the best wine writers. I don't know that you would say that about yourself, but I think truly you are the person that people look up to the way I think people looked up to Jancis, at this stage of her career. And it's very cool to have you on the side of reminding people how important and how I would go as far as to say not difficult it is to consider others when you are considering what you're doing. And it's taught me a hell of a lot. I have a long way to go. We all do. But it's also that's never going to be in the subconscious. You always have to be conscious about it. You have to be conscious about that stuff. So, I mean, do you feel comfortable being in this position to always have to have this discussion?
I have acclimated to it by now. So this is
a tough question. It's a tough question. I know. And I ask it with.
No, I think I understand you as a person and where you're coming from with the question. And the truth is I talk about it all the time, and not because that's what I would choose. And as a quirky personal side note, I don't like attention. Like, I have never sought getting attention. And yet, for whatever reason, when I was an academic, it would just happen. And then I actually had to be in front of a classroom as part of my job. So I had to get used to that. And then with wine, I really genuinely entered wine in order to understand where wine comes from. What's it about? How does it grow? How does it tend to show itself and things like that? And I naively thought I could just do that. And it turned out very quickly, for some reason, this is drawing attention. And I had to kind of come to terms with that. And honestly, it took years. But the thing that got me through it, that discomfort of being in the spotlight, or however you put that, was realizing, if I'm drawing attention, I could use that to direct it to topics that matter. So this will sound weird, but I don't need to matter personally. Like that's not what I'm doing. But the idea that I could ever make my presence or my work pull attention towards a thing that really is going to benefit people, that really is going to change how people understand things, that really is going to help us all respect and care for each other more. My God, like that's what makes it worth doing my work, you know?
Yeah.
From another perspective, like I really, it's like I really just want to do the like, oh my God, I'm going to study this and now I'm going to understand it more. And then I'm going to like figure out how it all works together. It's like the intellectual project is, I get really engrossed in that.
Let me be very frank. You are a geek of geeks. It is like, I mean, as far as like the wine geekery, you can outcompete anyone I can put in the room with you. It's great. I say that as a huge compliment.
Oh, thank you.
It's one of the fun things to like really go down deep on the minutia of wine and spirits and culture and whatever else. And I get it.
It's super fun, but I also do really care about people. And I think, some people are still resistant to the idea that so much time is spent on diversity conversations, broadly speaking. So another way to put it is I think what we're going through culturally, and I've said this a few times now, but what we're going through culturally is figuring out how to respect each other and what respect even looks like. And that is better for everybody in the long run.
How so? But how is that better for everybody?
I just think the more we learn to listen to each other, to respond to what the person in front of us cares about, and to kind of be in that space of caring about each other, the more we all can succeed and have more genuine comfort and genuine convenience and genuine pleasantness, So it's just, maybe it's a bit of an existential comment, but, on the other side, the business side of things, the economic side of things, and I say this often too, but studies have demonstrated that companies with the greatest diversity at the decision-making level also have the greatest success. So, okay, cool. There's the economic argument.
Sure.
The personal argument is that we feel better when we're with people that are actually listening and paying attention with us,
Yeah. That sounds like any relationship advice. Seriously. I mean, I think my wife would agree with you very strongly. All right, I'm sure there is some Kitá wine still out there, plenty of it probably, and I would advise everybody if you want to try it.
Yeah, I know you can order through the website still.
I would act now on it because obviously it's going to go away. At least that label. Tara and Medea, her wife, they still make fabulous wines.
Yeah, Communes to Dreams. Yeah.
And so we'll plug them because they should be plugged. It's just great stuff. I want to ask you a couple, I often ask people if they drank anything interesting. And to ask you this question is to be afraid that we have another half hour of the podcast. But I want to ask you what, because I'm always looking for hunches and, things to be interested in. I like to spring this question on you. What have you drank recently that I need to know about, that people listening to this podcast need to know about? Because you are one of the ones that if you're a wine collector, you need to just sit next to Elaine.
Well,
it's like insider trading.
I'm really lucky in that sense. That I have had lots of people willing to share wines with me and share wine insight with me. And so I've just continuously learned about new secret hidden gems. But last night, what I had was Kamusha, the White Lily. And it is a wine from South Africa made by a sommelier from Zimbabwe, which is so cool in itself. It's KUMUSHA. A number of those different wines, whites and reds, and I'm pretty sure there's a rosé as well, come into the United States. And the thing about them is they're really affordable,
Kamusha, the White Lily.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great novel.
So that particular wine, it's the Flame Lily. That particular
Kamusha,
wine,
the Flame Lily.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Flame Lily is a white blend that's primarily Roussanne and Chenin Blanc with a little bit of Colombard and Semillon. And so what I would say is it needs a lot of air. So chill it a little bit and then open it up and really take some time. Because I just drank it last night. I've had other kombucha wines and really liked them, but I hadn't seen that one yet. I knew it existed, but I hadn't found it yet, and I found it recently. And so when I first opened it, it was super reductive, match sticky. But over time, it opens up and you get this like gorgeous array of fruits and interesting like pithy notes. But the thing about it is the texture feels so good in the mouth. It just like feels good. And I love that part of wine when the wine is suddenly like, ooh, I want this in my mouth, So it's a great one for that.
That's a great. I've never. And that's honestly a really odd blend of grapes. I've never.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Colombard I know of, and I mean you don't normally see a lot of those grapes blended together. What's the price point on it? I'm sure
that one it was not $25. I honestly, think it was like 22, 23. That's what I'm saying. The wines are all great prices. The most expensive kombucha I've seen in the States, it was still less than 28.
Oh, that's great.
Several different reds and a couple of whites. And then, like I said, I'm pretty sure there's a rosé as well.
Yeah, so South Africa is so undervalued for one, but just underknown by Americans. I think in the UK, they have a little bit more of a appreciation for South Africa, or probably a lot more, but we just don't, even if it comes in, we for some reason still don't see a lot of it. So that's a good call.
Yeah, well, and the kombucha story is pretty cool too, because he's a sommelier from Zimbabwe and he moved to South Africa so he'd have the chance to make wine. And so he has this brand and then also does work kind of like finding special bottles and making them available to people there as well. So it's just cool. And then the wine, I'm like loath to name it because it's exactly the problem. Like, oh my God, it'll become even harder. But I am completely obsessed with Commando G, and their entry level, kind of most affordable Grenache it's $35 maybe, something like that. But their top end, so they do high elevation, really shallow granitic based, really shallow soil, granitic based soil Grenache, old vine, head trained, very old sites in Spain around Madrid. And some of the vineyards that they work with, they've actually kind of resuscitated. Spain, oh my gosh, what a fantastic country for wine as well.
No kidding. Oh my God.
The wines, for the most part, are like such great value in the States, but also just because of the political situation in the last century, there's a lot of vineyards in high elevation mountainous areas that were kind of just abandoned because people were forced to move into city centers. And so in the last couple of decades, a few people have been going around and sort of resuscitating, reclaiming them and making wine from them, which is amazing. And Commando G it's a duo, two best friends. They have done this with Grenache around the Madrid area. It's some of the best Grenache in the world. I'm not overstating that. The single vineyard, smaller production examples, one of my favorites is El Norte. It's almost impossible to get because the site is tiny. There's been freeze issues the last few years in parts of Europe. And that one now, I mean, a couple of years ago, it was maybe $100 or something. Now it's like $450. It's like really hard to find, right?
Yeah.
But it's incredible. And then the other examples, I think El Norte is the most expensive now because it's also such small production. But then they have several other bottling single vineyard designates. And they're, like I said, their sort of entry level, so to speak, is less than $40, more like $35. Just such a fantastic wine. And the thing about it is, and I'm going to say something not super diplomatic, but I'll just be honest. I love great Grenache, and I often don't like Grenache.
Yeah, that's not. I was expecting something real hot. No, that's nothing.
No.
Come on, I was holding
Elaine,
my breath.
You said something just true. Yeah,
I was holding my breath for something great. That just makes sense.
No, it's like great Grenache is some of the best wine in the world. And
I think people overthink Grenache a lot of times. They overthink it, and they, there's extraction, and they try to treat it like a different grape. And I think when you treat Grenache like Grenache, it can just be stunning, stupendous. Well, depending on where it's grown, it can be light, it can be bigger. It doesn't mean that, but it just means, I think it's overthought would be my, sometimes it's overthought. And it's so underappreciated as a single, when you bottle just Grenache and don't blend it. I don't find a lot of people that appreciate it the way I think it deserves. Well, this is great. Commando G. It's all sold out. I just looked. It's gone forever.
Yeah, it's hard. It's super hard to find, unfortunately, which is why I was like, oh God, it's such an awkward thing to mention. But I actually think, these two countries we've mentioned, Spain and South Africa, they're two of the areas that really have great Grenache, and the number of producers in both that are examples of that. So Commando G's one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go the direction. I know you're watching Sparklers. I see your Instagram.
I have not. I didn't watch yet the episode from this week, and then obviously I haven't seen the finale.
Okay, I think episode 12, which just aired, I think is the best.
Well, so don't give anything away because I haven't seen this week's.
I will not give anything away. Yeah, I will not give anything away.
So if you don't mind me gushing about your work a little bit, it's been really fun to see.
If you have any idea how much I would love to hear you talk about Sparklers, I'm like, I just like, that would mean the world to me. And the rest of my team, who I guarantee will just freak out.
It's been really fun to see. It was, any show builds over time as you get to know the personalities, right? So that's just given. Like, that's just true. But there was this moment, there's a way in which it was just a competition show for a little while. And it's sort of funny for me to watch because Claire's the only one I haven't met. Mm-hmm. I actually know the others, the other four.
Very well, indeed. I mean, you know Miriam very well.
Yeah, and actually George. Megan and George as well. And Kaner and I have done some work together before and have known each other actually longer than I've known the others. But, and Claire, I haven't met her yet. I'm still determined to get down to LA and have sushi, and see what she's up to there. But so yeah, for a little while, it was a competition show and there was friendly ribbing and you could see like they were happy to interact and things like that. But the episode that really shifted in my mind was the one that, it was getting better and better. Like it was getting more and more engaging. But then it really took this whole other level in the episode where Miriam and George first cooked together.
I couldn't agree more.
I saw that and I was like, am I allowed to say the F word? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. I watched that episode and I was like, holy fuck, this just became a show. Like this is a TV show, like that was this moment where it just moved to another level. And it wasn't only about them. I don't mean that, but they went deeper right there and it shifted the tone. And then the fact that it like, I don't know, Claire wasn't in the room for their conversation, but nevertheless, it was like Claire could feel it through the food or something. Like it carried all the way through to the fire. And I feel like the dynamic with the group after that just has also still continued to be different. Of course, some of that is time from them being with each other and all this stuff. But my point is, it was like it was a full tonal shift where suddenly is like, it started with the two of them cooking together and them sharing their cultural history and their personal experience and how they love to cook and then finding a way to fuse that through the dish. So cool. That's why we watch cooking shows, right?
Right.
And then I just feel like there's just been this feeling since then with all five of them where like we can feel them at a different level. Like they all kind of started to open up and it's when you start to care about the characters, so to speak, It
means a lot. I mean, the all of these people, you have to understand, like, we didn't push them to like, they just became very, I don't know, it's competitive and it's fun, but it's in good fun, meaning like nobody's hurtful to each other.
Yeah.
Elaine, I can't tell you the press. So like, you do press around these things and everyone I've asked the first question, every press goes this. So tell us, do they still talk to each other? Now they haven't seen on the whole series. I'm like, do they still talk to each other? I'm like, these people are like, it was during we filmed it during some very tough points of COVID when things were kind of locked down. Vaccines had just become a thing. And like, we sort of had to bubble up. And so the experience of doing this show with each other was very, I'm telling you right now, I think all of these people have each other's back for life. I really mean it. And it's like, it was this very cool experience where we all sort of went through I don't mean a war together, but being asked the question of, do they still speak? Thinking it was like, because I guess at the end of Top Chef and shows like that, people hate each other.
Well, this is what I was going to say is like, I feel like that there's something naive about that question. Like things are different in wine, but also things are different now in wine. I didn't even think to like,
I totally never pit them against each other at all. I mean, I will tell you right now that the Miriam and George like competition they have with each other, they just brought that into the show. I mean, apparently they compete with each other in card games and everything they do with each other. So it was like, Miriam's like, I think I'm going to be the bad guy in the show. I'm like, why do you think that? She goes, I think I'm going to be the bad guy. I was like, wait, what? You're just going to make yourself the bad guy? I was like, what's going on here? Like they just like casted themselves as like these characters. Great.
I also
laughed so hard of making that show.
I gotta say too, as you know, I know Megan, so like watching her go for a period where she's not doing quite as well, it's like hard, right? Because I care about her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she is so funny. She is so funny.
So
Every
funny.
single time she laughs on screen, I'm like get in a good mood. You know, like she's got the best laugh of anybody I know, and it just carries on camera so well. It's great.
Megan Zobek, you can tell you're in the county as her by that laugh.
Right,
I mean, she is so funny. And like, you know, all of these people are my favorite people. I mean, I get to do, that's the other thing about Som TV that I know people are jealous of, and they should be, is that I get to, this is the most fun job on the planet. I get to work with people I truly want to be in a room with.
Yeah.
I want to hang out with these people. They are my friends. And that's sometimes tough to direct people who are your friends, but it's also, man, it's fun. I haven't done anything like that since Som, and Som was not a, you know, this is totally contrived. We created a show. Som was sort of happening, but it was really cool to come back and think, you know, Som was a certain thing, and what do I not like about the direction that went and how people treat each other and all this stuff, and get to make a show where it's like, I can be conscious of that kind of stuff, but not have to force it. And just sort of be aware. I guess that's part of making stuff for, you know, years, but
the chemistry, it's just, that's the thing, is like some teams just have good chemistry, and I feel like the Sparklers cast is like that. They just have good chemistry. And, you know, and Claire too, like I said, she was the one person I didn't know. So I was really curious, like what I would think of her on screen.
She's so
like
funny.
I know her through Instagram and stuff like that. She's like that secret weapon person who you just like her more and more over time, whether you wanted to or not.
She's so funny.
Know?
I mean,
like she becomes more and more charming just because you're getting to know her better, you know?
Let me tell you, the outtakes with Claire are not shareable.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
She is one of these ones that her and I get in so much trouble. I mean, she is the best. She's so freaking funny. All of them. I mean, I can say that about each one of these people.
Well,
I
so
mean,
Kaner, since I've known Kaner the longest, he's the one I'm going to give a little bit of hell. What is up with his giant chunks of celery? I love celery, but Kaner, cut him up smaller, okay? Like, cut him up smaller, man.
I guarantee you'll listen to this too. That's so good. There were some celery jokes. There were plenty of celery jokes. No spoilers, but celery always sort of, you know, is involved in people's choices about his dishes and stuff. Elaine, it is an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I mean it, and I thank you for your honesty and talking about these things. It's important, and you know, education is important. So thank you.
If I'm in a position to help make things clearer around this stuff, then I'll do it. And part of why I say that though is because I know that you're sincere in your interest in sharing these stories honestly and in understanding yourself. And that's what makes it possible to have these conversations. So thank you for that.
Well, it means a lot. And I appreciate it. Well, next time we will, I'm going to have you compile a list of all the wines you want to see sell out, and we'll never see it. And we'll talk then. But in the meantime, everybody, thank you for listening. And please go to somtv.com. Don't forget, you can catch up on Sparklers because we're a week away from the finale episode. And it is, oh baby, it goes places. I'm just going to tell you that. February 15th, we have Saving a Restaurant coming to Som TV. And that is, I just don't think anyone else filmed anything like it. So I say that out of luck, not bragging. And it's also something that requires, everybody should still take action on. I mean, restaurants are not out. They're in the weeds very badly. And if you work in restaurants, you know what that means. Everybody be safe and be nice to people. Talk to you soon.